So this is not like super duper studio lighting. It's I'm sitting in my kitchen.
I love
This
it.
is not like fancy lighting. Like I've been relegated since all the kids are back. I am now just sitting in the kitchen, and it's like I explained to you earlier. I'm like trying to fit this in between dog naps
Yeah.
is key. So we are discussing my favorite word, the penultimate episode
Yes.
of Last of Us, episode 6. I believe the title of the episode was
The price.
the price, and the price being their relationship, the secret, the price of parenthood, all of that good
Yeah.
stuff. They really get into kind of a lot, especially with the opening. They really do. I mean, maybe it's a corny, cheesy way of taking the opening sequence with Joel as a teenager protecting his brother Tommy from their abusive father and then looping it to the very end of that episode. But I mean, in essence, it's kind of you being a parent, me being a parent. You get it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you know you're gonna mess up, but all you can hope is that your kids do better than you.
Yep. That's the goal.
Like, I am trying to do better than my parents. I hope my kids do better than me and that the cycle continues.
Yes.
However, the one could also make the case that the one cycle that they've kept continuing is one of violence, because whether
It's
or not they
true.
did it to each other, it is still an outward, they're still outwardly expressing violence. And
Yes.
like, Joel may never have beat Ellie, but the violence that he then carried on to others has now gone to through Ellie into, her revenge tour that she's
Yes.
doing. So you start with the opening of the episode with, again, Joel protecting Tommy from their abusive cop father, who explains, that yes, my father was abusive, but I'm trying to do better than him. Even though I just beat you with a belt, I'm not punching you.
Right.
I'm not punching you in the face. Where it's like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
And so we move on to that, and they do a good job because this is a flashback episode of being told through Ellie's birthdays, which I thought was
Yes.
kind
That
of
was
smart.
interesting.
Yeah, kind of smart. Instead of taking like just random days, you can mark each year with her birthday, and the
Yeah.
deterioration of their relationship opens up. Good, good, good. I believe her first birthday is the one where she accidentally burnt herself um
Yes.
in her arm because she just claims that, I'm just tired of wearing long sleeves. I want to wear short sleeves again. And she knows she has to cover up that bite mark before people start asking. Good relationship. She's turning 15. The next birthday, 16, he takes her to the museum. She gets to pretend she's an astronaut. They do have a very quick birds and bees discussion. Dicks and vaginas, I believe. Yes,
Yes.
he is way off in supposing that she is straight
Yeah. What was
with
that?
her
Was it
with
Jesse he was
yeah, with
talking
her
about?
relationship. But just she's like, "Ooh, no, you're way
Yeah.
off." He's like, and he was so proud of himself that he prided himself on being
I've
right,
got an
and
eye for
just
these things.
right. And she's like, "No, okay," but you don't. So good relationship there. Then 17, and the thing is, 17 is where it kind of starts. But I mean, this is normal parenthood.
I was
You
gonna
will
say this
just
is a normal that was despite the apocalypse, that was like a normal parent child teen relationship
right.
sequence.
Yeah, it starts. There are things that start to happen. There are now, and in all reality, you may not hit the trifecta of sexual experimentation, drug use, and a tattoo all in the same day.
A 24-hour period just getting all the checks.
I mean, he opens the door, and
All of it.
all three are going on right now. You might have had a little bit more time as a normal parent to adjust to those
Yeah.
things, but boom, he said. But the normal things of a normal parent teenager relationship compounded upon there is a lie between them
Yes.
that is going to start straining what is a normal, a tenuous relationship between a parent and child, make it even more strained and more thin and more delicate and eggshelly type of thing. Then I believe you go to, because they discuss taking her out like on
Going on
raids,
raids. Yeah.
and she immediately like
Or
after he
patrol.
busts,
Sorry, not
right,
raids.
yeah,
Going out on
same
patrol.
thing. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
she after going back to 17, going she noticed, or she's immediately wanting to move out to the garage, and I
Yes.
think that's kind of, we also discovered that that's where she was living, like at the early season. Like you're kind
Right.
of never really sure where she's living, and then you
Yeah.
discover that that's the garage. Then you go to their first patrol together where they run into Eugene. I was a little disappointed, but we're going to get into that a little bit later.
Same.
Where they run into Eugene, who has been bitten. Eugene
Wait, wait, wait,
being,
wait, 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 wait. Before she leaves on patrol, you see her rehearsing the questions about
yes,
the day.
yes, yes.
Uh, anyway, yeah.
Yes, no, good. I mean, I'm glad you said that. Yes, she's sitting in the. I think she's in the garage at that
In the
point.
garage, yeah.
Yeah, she's sitting in the garage, and she's already starting to. You can see that they're giving you the exposition that she's already starting to question Joel's Firefly story from season one, and that she's got a list of questions that she's going to ask him. Again, she doesn't know definitively, but these are things that she's like, these are not
Yeah.
making. The older I'm getting, these dots aren't connecting. So
Yes.
yes, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because I completely skipped over that. But yes, they go on the patrol, run into Eugene, who's been bit. Eugene is the husband of, I'm blanking on her name,
Like Gale.
Gail, Catherine O'Hara's therapist character. And his only desire is to talk to Gail. And basically, he wants her last words. Again, we always are dealing with relationship selfishness. No, I mean, and I don't say that in a bad way, but like
Yeah.
everybody has it. Everybody has their things that they want. He's wanting to see Gail's face and hear her words. Ellie kind of tests him, says, "Hey, we've got time." Joel's like, "Go get the horses," and she's like, "Don't you do anything?" And he's like, "I swear," and or "I promise," and with the same look, and she's like, "We're gonna get back to that later."
Yeah.
Probably a little bit sooner than what he had anticipated and she had anticipated. So the Eugene story, he ends up taking Eugene to overlook some water and says, "Close your eyes. You can picture your wife right here because you're not going any farther than this." And shoots Eugene. Ellie shows up and she's like, "We're going to talk about this later." Now, again, they get back to Jackson and Joel explains to Gail, like, he gives her a complete BS story.
Yes.
And Ellie, in her childlike fashion, instead of handling this with Joel in private, outs him to Gail and Tommy right there, saying this entire story is complete fabrication. This is crap. And that's when you kind of, she makes a statement, "You swore." And
Yeah.
at that moment with Eugene, he had promised. So you know that she is in fact referring to years ago,
The
him
end of
actually
season
saying,
one.
"Yes, I swear." So at that point, she doesn't know definitively, but she's more sure than she's ever been until she can actually get his confession, which
Yes.
then comes. Is that 9 months? Like after that
Yeah,
happens,
so this was 9 months to New Year's. So it was the current year we were in, but
9 months later,
yeah, but
right?
yeah, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So 9 months later, the New Year's Eve party, everything that had happened, the stuff with Seth, her kissing Dina, and you see her like at that episode, she walks past Joel. But what we see in this episode, she comes back to Joel and confronts him about the Firefly thing. And he doesn't exactly give her the entire story. She asks questions and he keeps going, yes or no, or like very, he's not giving her the straight truth, which I found a little interesting that she said, could a cure be made? And he says yes, which I thought was a little weird.
That was
Well,
surprising to me.
a little weird. We'll get to that. And it ends with, again, very much the way, I don't want to say the game ends, but that scene of, "I don't think I can forgive you, but I'd like to try." And he also says during that thing is like, "You don't understand. Like, I love you in a way you'll never be able to understand." And I think every parent has gone through that of, no matter what your child does, says, thinks, how much they say they love you, they can't possibly understand the sacrifice, love, like the blood, sweat, and tears, if you're a good parent,
Right,
that
right.
you put towards your child. And he says, you know, like, I love you in a way that you'll never understand. And if you do, I hope you do better than me, which again rounds out the from the beginning. So
Well,
we're
and
left
then it
with
ends with
her.
in the rain, what I believe is her outside of the hospital from Nora.
Yes, yeah. I think
Which,
like she's
if
passing
that
like
that
a is she passing like a theater? Because like you see like
yes,
yeah, okay. And she's
and
on her way.
that just annoyed me, but we can get
Well,
into that.
now we're gonna get into this because again, there is only one more episode. We are like, this is it. I
Yeah.
will say that the series, if you listen to the HBO official podcast, the creators did let it slip that you will see Joel Pedro Pascal in season 3 too. So not exactly what we'll see, but that's the end. That's, I mean, I'm sure I skipped over some things that it may have happened. If you bring them up, great,
Yeah.
great. It's but go ahead. What is like a one word of what you'd give the episode?
Emotional, I guess, would be, but I feel like that's a cop out one. I want to say family, but that feels like too much Fast and Furious.
Right.
But like, it was very much an emotional family or intimate, and not like in a lover's way intimate, but just a
Right.
family closeness episode with Joel and Ellie, with Eugene and Gail, just
Him and Tommy, him and
him
his
and
dad. Right.
Tommy. Yeah, very family intimate. So intimate, I guess, is non-sexually
Intimacy. No.
intimate is my word.
Familial intimacy
Yes,
in
yes.
a way. Um, what did you see? Should we do with what we feel like they got wrong and what whether they feel like they got right? Should we do what we think they got wrong?
Yeah, we could do that one.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. What I'm sure we match on some of these and go ahead.
Yeah. So for the whole episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I did not like, there wasn't a whole lot of things I didn't like per se, but it was like little things. I didn't like the whole Eugene part. And that could have been us expecting something, but we kind of built a story of why Eugene has to die. And we're thinking, oh, because he was an ex-Firefly. Like, we give this guy a whole backstory
Right.
in the behind the scenes leading up to the episode, just for none of that to be explored. And it's like, oh, he got bit. Oh, okay.
Right.
Um, I I guess I didn't. I wish they maybe went more in depth into Joel confessing what he did. Not that I feel like he needed to come clean, but more of like, since we know that he is no longer here, he died. It's like I would have liked some resolution of like, hey, you told her everything. Now, I think she was making a lot of assumptions because the way she was asking questions was like, I can connect the other dots.
Right.
Um, and then my biggest thing it was really small things. The biggest thing I didn't like, and maybe they'll go into it on the next episode, is the last time we saw Ellie, she was chasing Nora while also being chased by the guards inside the hospital. They jump onto the elevator, that thing drops down into the forbidden zone. You hear the guards in the background say, "Oh, oh shoot, it was unsealed, like lock it down, lock it down." So they have now effectively sealed them down there. She goes down there, interrogates, tortures Nora. How is she getting out? That was my big thing. You are now sealed in the basement with the airborne cordyceps spores, and you just skipped all of that and just have her walking down the street in the rain. And I'm like, we just skipped like a whole. How did you get out of there? I need to know. Um,
Yeah, because this is like, are we seeing her we're not seeing her go to the hospital. Are we seeing her leave the
That's
hospital?
what I'm trying to figure out. Was she leaving the hospital? If this
Right,
was like a different scene of her running to the hospital or something, okay. But the way I understood it,
right,
it was her getting out of the hospital and going to the theater, which I don't know if that was significant because honestly, like I said, I don't
right,
remember much of the second game, but I didn't like that. Outside of that, I feel like it was a good episode for the story it wanted to tell. Like obviously there wasn't a lot of violence or anything like that. So I don't have a ton that I didn't like. It was just a different pacing type of episode
right,
because there wasn't a lot of infected or coming from being chased by um the Scars and Wolf and everything else to immediately, and I realize it's a backtrack, but then going back
right,
to a slower episode. But I didn't have a ton of issues with it.
right. Because we didn't need they did need to address the falling apart of their
Yes,
relationship. Right.
very
It's at
necessary.
some point. So it's, some people might complain like, why did they wait so long
Yeah.
in this season? It being the next to last episode. Why did they maybe wait too long to do this? I don't know again if there would have been a great point, like to put it in. Like what I think they did it as well as they could because again, you're seeing her complete devolvement of like her when she started you end with her beating Nora
Yeah,
and then
they needed to have the reveal because it was always a question of does she know, does she know?
right,
And it wasn't until she was beating Nora, and Nora basically said, "Do you know what he did?"
right.
And Nora puts it out there, and we're like, "Oh, Ellie's gonna snap," and Ellie's like, "Oh yeah, I know."
I
Like,
know.
so they had to wait until that point
Right.
to then give us the episode. But yeah, it's like, well, you waited 7 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks, like,
No, but that's a good point. I mean, I think you're completely right that like that's the part where you sneak that in because at any point else in the story is she being confronted about what she knew and what Joel had done. And the
right,
answer is not until she had come across one of those members of that group is she are you going to have that confrontation.
yeah,
Like that's not going to happen between her and Jesse, it's not going to happen between her and Dina. When else is that going to happen? But I will agree with you on the Eugene thing. I think you have
yeah,
a lot of backstory on him being a firefly, the weed, him having this whole little warehouse thing. And maybe it's just like, okay, is he just a commonplace drug dealer? Which again, like,
right,
big deal. I mean, no, like at this point, does anybody care? But it's
right,
like, I think they had again it was using Eugene. We knew that it was going to be with Eugene that the lie was going to be uncovered in some sort of way. I think like everybody kind of figured that he was going to be that key that unlocked the reveal of that
yeah.
she kind of knew what Joel had done. I don't know if they did it in the best way because he could have when Ellie showed back up with the horses and she saw Eugene dead, he could have just been like he started turning quicker than what
Right.
he was already turning. He
Yeah,
let
yeah, the clock sped up, so
right like that like he could have told her that he didn't have to promise her. He could be like or like what's the worst? I mean, tie him to the whole, tie him in a burlap, tie him to the burlap sack and drag him back, walkie talkie back to Jackson and say, hey, Eugene's got some last words for, like you
yeah.
guys talk there. Like I can't bring him back. He can tell you right here on the walkie talkie, he's been bit. I'm not lying. What has to be done. The whole like
Yeah.
story in front of Gail, in front of Ellie, like at least like he could have said on the way back like this is the story we have to tell Gail, you may not like it, you don't seem really cool with this, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah, it was just poorly
Executing,
written, poorly
yes.
executed. And yeah, that's what stuck out to me is there was a lot of different ways you could have done this. There was a lot of different ways it could have been handled at each different moment. It does add to my growing annoyance, I guess you could say, of Ellie. And before anyone comes after me, I'm not saying my annoyance of Bella Ramsey. I am
Right.
saying Ellie. And yes, I understand this is how her character is written as this headstrong, acting
Impulsive.
before she thinks, impulsive
Right.
character. But all we have seen, I guess in the first season, but especially in this season, she wants to go on patrol. They take her off patrol. She throws a fit, goes, does it anyway. Jesse is like, look, we're gonna let you go on patrol. People look up to you. Can you and Dina follow protocol? Okay, fine. As soon as they get out beyond the gate, they take off and do their own thing. They go into that room where she finds the stalker, um, all this different stuff. Now you've got uh Eugene gets bit, which sucks. Like truly. I am not saying as soon as someone gets bit, just boom, headshot
Right.
him. But you have protocols in place for a reason. We are in a post-apocalyptic world. We have these protocols in place for a reason, and you are just constantly not caring and letting your emotions lead. So Eugene doesn't like it, but in his head he gets it. Joel doesn't want to do it, but he's like, this is the way things are. Ellie's like, hold out your hand. Joel's fine. Like, we can take him back. Like, what do you no, who are you, Ellie? Like, shut
Are
up
you a
and
doctor?
get on your
Like
yeah,
this.
like we are not doing this right now. And yes, it sucks. And it's like it's almost like she made Joel lie because she is so impulsive when he told her to go get the horses. If she's like, don't do anything, if he kept it real and was like, look, I can't make that promise, she probably wouldn't have gone to get the horses.
Right.
So it's like you made Joel lie to you, and then he did what he did, which was within protocol. Like again, it sucked. I get
Right.
that. But imagine if every person that gets bit is like, well, let me go see my kids one last time. Let me go see my wife one last
Right.
time. The rules are there for a reason. And usually, yes, we don't like rules. Like that's kind of the whole point of rules, but like they exist for a reason. And just that whole scenario, like I realized Joel lied to you and you trusted him and he lied to you and you saw the same look. I get that. But I'm just like, Ellie, you kind of made him lie to you because you think you are above all the rules and protocols that are set
Right.
in place.
Right. Just because you're immune
Yeah.
doesn't mean that by the time they get back, like, what if he lunges and he attacks Gale?
Yeah.
Like that you don't know how much time he's got. You really don't. You
Yeah.
are guessing and hoping, but you really don't know.
Yeah.
And like to then out Joel in front of Gale at that moment. I mean, I get that that is such a kid thing to do, that just
Yeah.
lack of thought. And I'm just trying to wound you because I'm hurting at the moment. That's a complete, like, you can tell like I'm not thinking through the consequences of what I'm about to do here because
Correct.
I am kind of, my relationship with him is fractured, but now I'm willing to fracture his whole entire relationship with the entire community,
Yes.
like on a whim. So it's like that's just not a lot of forethought with that where that goes.
Right.
So it's like you're selfishly like just you're putting your feelings at the moment where like again you could have been, let's talk about this later, like and it wouldn't have been anybody because again, what are you going to say? You can't out him and talk about again. She had a fractured relationship with him to the point where everybody at the beginning of the season was like, "What the is going on with you two?"
Yes.
She can't ever tell anybody.
Right.
Right. So it's like you're doing this, you're acting out in a way that is making everyone curious. It's making Gail curious about why like all of this, and you can't tell anybody. So
Yeah.
I get it. I get that your relationship with him is very bad at the moment, but again, you're going, it's going to make the entire community pay attention to this and take
Yeah.
notice. And you're not thinking about like, okay, but I can't like, I'm doing all this and everybody's going to wonder why, but I can't ultimately tell anybody.
Right. Yeah, and that is just increasingly frustrating. Again, I realize like that is how her character is written. And so they're
Right.
doing a good job,
Sure.
but it's like I am not siding with Abby. I mean, I've kind of been since the beginning, I've been 50-50. Like
Right.
I see why Abby did what she did. But like Bella, you were or Bella, Ellie, you are not making it easy for me to want to root for you because you are just always, always, always being so impulsive and not caring about what happens next or whose lives are affected as long as you
Right.
do what you want to do.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I thought the Eugene scene, I thought this episode had a lot of good acting performances.
Sure. Oh,
Like
absolutely.
just a lot of because it wasn't a lot of heavy action. It was soft music, one-on-one, like camera in your face, and you were giving this monologue. Eugene's, um, Joel's when he was answering the questions, uh, Gail just when she and Joel were kind of talking about different stuff and
The
stuff was her
death,
birthday and
the
death. Like,
yeah, the moth death thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot of strong acting performances in this episode, and I did really like that.
Oh, 100%. I think it very much tied the just the yeah, like you said, it was about family and relationships and just even just kids and just a normal like even if you were to take the apocalypse out of it, was just a normal parent-child relationship and how it changes over the years
Yes.
due to the one wanting of independence and I don't want to say exploring yourself because like she knew she was gay like that was she
Right.
he was like oh you're experimenting and she's like yeah we're way past the
Yeah.
experimental phase here but
Yeah.
like him trying to catch up like again when he had his daughter Sarah I don't remember how old she was but let's say she was only about 14, 15-ish so his parenting pretty much stunted at that. Sarah still thought the world of him. It was his night and day. He hung the moon, he hung the sun, and then he actually has the continuation of those years with a daughter who isn't his that he's had kind of like a relationship by trauma with,
Right.
and so it's like I don't want it's an unnatural relationship in the fact that like they've gone through a lot of unnatural things together
For sure.
added upon puberty, added upon the lie that he's told.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I like I said, I wish there was a little bit more. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more definitive evidence proof from Eugene about the Firefly story. Like him
Yes.
saying, like, hey, did you tell Ellie? Like I've heard that kind of stuff instead of just, well, he gave me a look and said, I promise, and he broke his promise. Like, I mean, I get it.
Exactly.
I get it that there's a lot of like she was instinct, she had already had those thoughts and she was going to confront him, and that just didn't help. And that probably just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. But I wish we would have gotten a little bit more meat and then she, she could have confronted, maybe that would have made the confrontation 9 months later, null and void. But I just wish we would have gotten, especially when you had set up a lot with Eugene.
And but I think that's my big thing is you
Right.
set up so much with his backstory and you went to his weed shop in the old 7-Eleven and you do so much interacting with Gail, who I think they said Gail was not a character
Right.
in the game. So you created his wife to add more layers to the relationship. So you're like, yo, this Eugene's death is probably going to be, like we said,
Impactful.
impactful. Like he found out something, so Joel had to do this to keep the secret, like something like that. And at the end of the day, if you take out the little sidebar conversations, Eugene got bit, Joel followed protocol, Ellie didn't like it. That's what happened.
Right.
Like,
Right.
why is Gail so mad? And she, in her monologue a few episodes back, she did say, I know you had to do it, but I still hate you for it. So, like,
Sure.
even in that scene, Gail kind of did acknowledge, like, it had to be done. But I just feel like they spent a lot of time building this world of Eugene just for it to basically be, oh, yeah, he got bit and Joel had to kill him.
Right. Especially again, when you could poke holes in the story with just using the walkie talkie.
Yep.
Radio back to Jackson and being like,
Hmm.
hey, I've got Eugene here and we know it's not protocol to bring him back, but he has some things he'd like to say to you and he
Yeah.
wants to hear you talk. I mean,
Yep.
seems pretty easy. Again, that's a lot of holes in that particular part of the story for it to be just getting to her going, oh, he swore and he broke another
Yes,
promise. Like
exactly,
it's like, oh,
exactly.
that's a lot of kind of, you don't want to say sloppy writing, but just kind of like to get to that particular place where I feel
Yeah,
like
because
that
it's
could
such
have.
a big thing that it leads to, for it
Right,
to be essentially Joel followed protocol, Ellie didn't like it. Like again, Ellie made him lie to her. Like she
right,
didn't make him lie, but she was being headstrong and impulsive and pretty much made Joel swear that he would bring Eugene back to camp.
right.
And the whole time Joel's like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that."
Right. Yeah, he kept saying like, no, this is not it.
Yeah.
You've been bit. You know the rules. Da, 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 da. Like we can't do this. And once again, his maybe it's like she's angry. Like, listen, you didn't follow protocol when like I kind of know what happened at the hospital, and you shot everybody like for the betterment of your relationship with me, and now you can't sacrifice just a little bit for somebody else's relationship. Yeah, like I said, it's just a lot of, like I said, that scene, that kind of part. I was just kind of like, ugh, like this is
Yeah.
all we're getting out of it is just like
Yeah.
her going, oh, you promised me, and you had the same look on your face, and I was just like,
Yeah, I was
for
very
the
much a that's it type
right,
of reaction.
especially how they open that scene with, again, like you said, her in her room going over the speech she's going to give him,
Yeah.
and like her having a lot of questions, and then
It all
all
comes down to a look.
right, and like, oh, you promised, like. Well, I mean, like, I hate to tell you, kid, but as a parent, you promise your kids a lot
Yeah.
and like can't always follow through or want to swear and do your best. And it just
I
doesn't
was
happen.
thinking the way I thought if is when I saw her rehearsing the questions, I thought they were going to be with Eugene and the note, letter, whatever would fall out of her pocket. Eugene, being a former Firefly, would pick it up, read it, and start connecting the dots and be like, oh, I had some friends that were Fireflies and they all died, blah, blah, blah. They told us it was
Mhm.
Raiders. But like looking at her questions, Eugene would start to put some of it, like as soon as she had that paper, I was like, oh, Eugene's gonna find that paper. Like that is what I thought was going to happen. And that was going to be the tipping point of, now you've got Ellie and Eugene being like, yo, Joel, so like what happened here? And then
Right.
it all being all that build up to be reduced down to the look you gave me was the look you gave me when you said you wouldn't shoot Eugene is the same look you gave me when you said you told me the truth about what happened at the hospital in Denver or wherever they
Almost 4 years ago.
almost 4 years ago. Like that was it. And I was like, really?
Yeah. And
Is
it's
this
like
what we're
you
doing?
also kind of want to know, like, how was it just age that made her started questioning? Like, what led her to being like, why, like I have some questions about this. But I mean, like,
Hmm.
I would have rather seen that than instead of just opening cold scene, her saying, hey, I've got questions, here are my questions.
Yeah,
How, why did you
for
start?
sure.
Maybe the Eugene part should have come before like
Yes.
like
Yeah,
like her be
you
like,
lied to me.
oh,
You made that look, and that is what sparked doubt
right.
because you very easily lied to me with the same face you made when you told me everything that happened.
That triggered a
Yeah,
memory.
that
Right.
triggered my doubt, and now I have these questions.
Right. Now
I
that we've
did like the birth, like you said. I did like that it was not just a random day and the flash forward or the jump forward. It was a specific day and it was an important day. It was her birthday. I thought that was a really cool touch. I thought the space scene was cool. It meant more to people, I think, that played the games because the dialogue during the first season and some of the second season with Ellie and Joel, or just Ellie in general, she loves learning about space.
right.
Obviously, being born when everything fell apart, she didn't get to watch all the movies and stuff about space.
Sure.
But in the game, when you're traveling from city to city and you guys are on the horse talking, there's a lot of in-game dialogue about how much she loves space. So I thought the whole sequence of them going to the museum and getting in the spaceship, I thought that was cool, acknowledging like that the comic books that she collects in the game and then space for like her two favorite things. So I thought that was cool.
It's interesting because in the official podcast, they talk about the reason the creators of the game put that, like her being interested in being an astronaut, is because the girl, and I'm blanking on her name, the girl that they used for the voice of that,
Hmm.
that's what she had wanted to be, like as a little girl. That's
Really?
so they made that character have the interest in space and wanting to be an astronaut. And the same thing is with the guy who voiced Joel, is he was a big lover of music, which is again why they had him
Yes.
being the guitar and singing and all that stuff. And I think it was really good that they still kept the um Pearl Jam song, even though they've already talked about like chronologically that song wouldn't have come out, but just
Yeah.
the fact that it has those lines in the song, and like if I were to ever lose, like I'd lose myself. And essentially, that's kind of the reason he had to keep the lie going, is if he knew if he lost Ellie, having lost Sarah, having lost his wife, having lost Sarah, the possibility of losing Ellie, he knew that's it. I've got
Yeah.
nothing else. Like I'm ready for death. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing else to keep me going. So I get that. Like I still applaud them keeping the song, even though the people are going to be like, that doesn't make any sense. That song
Yeah.
didn't come out. But I mean, like that's so
In this multiverse, they made the song like 2 years earlier.
right, right, right. So A through F, pluses and minuses. What would you give the episode?
I think I give this one a B minus. I give it a B minus because what I didn't like was how such an important part of the story came from, like we said, a look. We've spoken on that. Um, and that was like the big part of the episode. But what keeps it at a B is the small touches of like her birthday and using that to show the years, and then just the acting performances. Like I said, the way that they interacted with each other, the way when they would give their individual monologues, I thought just phenomenally done across the board. So I put it in B, but it's a B minus just because I feel like for such a big reveal, there should have been more that led up to it.
I'm with you 100%. I think I'd like to be able to like, oh, I would like to give it to B. The Eugene part wasn't that big of a, big deal out of the whole grant. But for me, it just really sticks to the point where I'm like, I can't get past it.
Yes,
Like I can't,
I
I wish I
definitely
could
agree.
move past it for such a great, for all these other positive things in the episode. But like, unfortunately, I know where, I know what you were trying to get to. And I just feel like it could have been done better. Like there's so many other avenues and ways that you could have put these pieces together instead of it just being I'm questioning this out of nowhere, and then you gave me a look, and now like our whole entire relationship for 9 months, I'm putting the entire community on unease with something I'm not even 100% sure,
Right.
because
I
you gave
still
me a
have
look.
questions.
Right.
Yeah.
I still, all these questions haven't been answered until the day before you're going to die. And now I'm going to get these solved. Like, I get it that that's probably how it was in the game.
Yeah.
And so, like, but I don't know how she found out in the game as compared to this episode. But for like, again, for putting the entire community was like on edge with your relationship. Like, it
Yeah.
went from day to night in like a matter of those hours. It's like you go out on patrol, you come back, and you're no longer speaking to him again for 9 months.
Yeah, for
and you're
9 months. Yeah.
and again, and it's like,
Wild.
right, like, and now you've got Jesse and Dina and Tommy and Gail and everybody saying, hey, we're noticing all this, like, and what's going on. And she's just like, don't worry about it. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but it's
We
like
kind of are worrying about it because you're making it everybody else's problem.
right, right. You're making it, you've made this entire situation, like you guys went from, like you didn't even say like I didn't have like how he handled the Eugene thing. Say that.
Yeah.
Say
Yeah.
something.
Since
But
you
now you have everybody
outed
like,
him and said that he lied about the story, now that that's out there, you literally could have just gone with that and be like, yeah, I didn't like how he handled the Eugene thing. And then I've been like,
because
okay,
you're a small community, and what do small communities do?
they
Talk
gossip.
and gossip.
Yeah.
So it's like, You better hope that letter isn't found by anybody with all your questions.
Right.
like, like,
Yeah.
oh man, you've got bigger fish to fry than this. This is
Because you would
crazy.
think
So,
Eugene's probably not the only ex-Firefly there in that community.
right. You know that's yeah, I mean that it's crazy. I mean now Dina knows. I mean, like you're gonna have to hope that like that never I
I feel
it's
like
just
this Tommy knows. Tommy knows because in the earlier season she was with him and she was screaming it. So Tommy knows.
does she? Does he?
Yeah, so when they were out hunting in the earlier episodes and she was shooting, she was talking about he didn't want her on patrols. And she's like, I'm the one person that should be on patrols because I'm immune. And
Okay.
he's like, don't say that so loud. So she starts screaming it because they were the only ones out there,
Oh, okay.
which also annoyed me because, like, can you just not? So Tommy
Right.
knows. Now Dina knows. Jesse, I said last episode, maybe he hasn't processed it because
Because
he had to come
he's
into the
doing what we
warehouse.
expect. Like he's actually
Yeah.
like in fight or flight mode instead
Yeah,
of having
exactly.
like
So he comes
deep
into the warehouse,
conversation.
saves them, they run into the woods, the scars are there. So he hasn't fully processed, but like I feel like once he like sits back and plays it back in his head, he's like, Dina was in a cage and you were over here getting jumped by like six of these things, and you're over here telling me that you didn't get bit. And he's like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Right. Let me look. Like I don't want to be a
Right.
creeper, but like this
Yeah.
is for the betterment of again our community
Yes.
and me wanting to be around you. Let me have a look.
Yeah.
Like I don't trust you at the
Yeah.
moment. Like so yeah, that's yeah. Those again, I think it's fair, B minus. We have questions. I think again, like it's just a lot to overlook for the where you're trying to go. I do appreciate that again, one of the things that they said in this official podcast is when you know where the end of your story is, it's easier to write your story, which I mean, I don't want to be like segue now into, and we're not going to have a whole discussion on Andor, but I had
I was
also
about to
heard,
say that sounds like Andor to me.
right, that that was one of the creators of that Gilroy said,
Yeah.
when you know where you have to end up, it's so much easier to write. Again, the problem with some of these shows that flounder in the end is they don't know where they want to go.
Yep.
And they don't know where their ending point is and what they're writing towards, what goal they're writing towards. And so they just kind of, all over the place. But shout out to Andor for knowing where you were going to go and then just
Whew.
filling in, which again, like not to get into a huge discussion about it, but probably, man, I has again, me being a huge Star Wars fan, I don't want to make like this make my bias. I know I'm going to say something and people may not agree, and that's fine. I might put it above Penguin.
That's not even a hot take to me. I'll have to think about it before I agree with you.
But that's what I'm
But
saying.
if
Like
it's
I
not
know I
past it, it is like right there.
right. It is, and the only reason I would give the edge to Andor is because they knew where they were going with it.
Yes.
Like if you can't, Penguin has a lot writing on the fact is, will it tie into Batman 2? Is this a standalone? Da, 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 da. Those things will and can affect it because again, it has made people either really like Rogue One or really hate Rogue One, however you feel about it. But Andor was such layered and such textured and such complex writing for again in its Star Wars. They took Star Wars and they made it grounded. They
Yes.
didn't make it something corny. They didn't even mention, I don't think they even mentioned Vader. Like this was something where
They
they
mentioned the
mentioned,
Emperor. I don't think Vader was mentioned at all.
yeah, they mentioned the Emperor, but in a realistic way through
It
the
was a
Senate.
political drama in the Star Wars universe.
Right. And it really made you realize that one, in some of the writing that was given to Stellan Skarsgård as far as Luthen, just insane. I mean, like, and the speech of Mon Mothma, insane. Like, it made it so much better than just taking it from a cheeky Western with some Skywalker kids that kind of like has 1,000 plot holes that you could drive a truck through. That like you really tightened this up and made
Yep.
it. I love that they did not even mention the word Death Star until the second to last episode. And that it made it that much heavier when it
Yes.
finally was like we knew as an audience what the empire was moving towards, and the fact that all of this, that they're having all of these rebellions forced in all these different areas so they can come in and swoop in and take over so they can get these resources to create this planet destroyer. It just, yeah, I
No
can't
notes.
say enough.
100% agree.
I can't say enough good things about that. I know that there are a lot of people that the first season, it was just too much of a slow burn for them. They kind of checked out. I say to those people, if you did, fine, fine, I understand. Please go back and just watch like a YouTube summary over the first season, but please just jump into the second.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what you're missing.
And I will go as far to say I was wrong when they announced that they were going to drop it in 4 3 episode bundles. I thought that was a terrible idea. Now understanding that each 3 episode bundle was a year and it was jumping forward, I thought that was great. I know there were some people reading comments that didn't like it because there was a lot of time in between where like I want to know what happened during that time because characters changed or stuff changed. And I get that. But at the same time, they did such a good job telling the story that they wanted to tell that I don't necessarily miss the stuff that they didn't tell.
Right. It was a thread. It was like a single thread. And it's like, you're right. There were all these other stories. Like, like you want to talk about like the go back to like the Loki branches. There were a lot of branches that you could have 1,000 stories out of them, what happened. But they were trying to go from point A to point B with just a single plot, like a plot
Yeah.
of the empire is gaining ground through horrible methods, and everybody, you weren't safe if you worked for the empire. You weren't
Yes.
safe if you worked for the rebellion. There were horrible people on both sides
Yeah.
that were all for a common goal. And again, we know ultimately that the empire was the worst, because they created a planet killer, but there were not great people on the rebellion side.
Yeah. They were forced
Luthen,
to use the tools of their enemy, as Luthen said.
right. And him being the kind of person where he's like, where I gave up everything, you should too, because we're
Yeah.
fighting something that doesn't care about any of our futures and any of our families. But again, such great, just complex characters. I think the use of, I love the robot.
K2SO.
Yes.
So good. So good.
His right, it just enough levity in those heavy situations. Like, would you like
Yes.
to know how many times you've asked me to defy orders? And and his showing up um, at the safe house to save them at the last minute, and just his just casual, again, you see the power of those. So good.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, again, we didn't cover it in our podcast because again, they did drop it 3 episodes at a time. And it's very hard to watch 3 episodes at the same time, two different people. But that's kind of
I did make my little photo, quick thoughts is what I called it, and I put those out there and just give a quick summary of something I thought of from each episode. Those got a
okay.
lot of good traction, a lot of good discussions on those. I will say on our TikTok page, that's probably the Andor show is the first show where I've given my opinions and it has not resulted in everyone turning against me. It's like the one time that everyone's pretty much on the same page. And shocking that it was a Star Wars thing that did that.
Right? That's it's huge. Like I don't I don't know what issues people would have with that show. I really don't. And
Yeah.
I I really don't. And my issue with Penguin was like as the season went on was like you're ignoring Batman is only making me like wonder why you're ignoring him all the more.
Yeah.
And there was no, well, you're ignoring such and such. Like you had Bail Organa, you had Mon Mothma, you had Tarkin mentioned, you had the Palpatine mentioned, you had everybody that really did play a role in the creation of the rebellion and the creation of the Death Star. You had everybody.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That's what puts it above Penguin to me. As phenomenal as Penguin was, like
Oh,
I'm not taking
100%.
anything away from it. Before Andor, this was my favorite show well, it technically is a new year, but it's my favorite show of the year. But the fact that Batman wasn't mentioned at any point is what bothered me
Right.
eventually.
Right.
And
And I think that's what this did a good job of is it didn't ignore those things.
yeah,
I mean, again, yeah, you're right. They didn't talk about Darth Vader, but I think it was actually kind of smart and to not make it, you didn't want to make it a Skywalker story again.
yeah.
Like, you didn't want people being like, oh God, here we go. Like,
Well, I think
and
the difference is it's such a bigger galaxy. So you
sure,
could say that Vader was off doing other things and stuff like that. Whereas with the Penguin, it's like, no, Gotham is Batman's backyard. Like
right,
this is where he patrols. He's not going anywhere else unless he's going to Metropolis to talk with Superman for a little bit. So for all of this going down in Gotham with the biggest crime families in Gotham and Batman not being mentioned until the final frame of the last episode, like
right,
it you just you okay. That's like the one criticism I have, and I think
right.
that's why Andor was better.
I'm 100% with you because again, I think it's like, okay, I mean, I know you hate people like, yes, Darth Vader is one of the best villains, one of the major villains that we have in pop culture. However, Emperor was still the one running the stuff at the time.
Yeah,
I
this is
mean,
a
at
political
that
show, so
moment,
he didn't need his
right,
assassin.
right. Darth Vader is still his right hand man thug. Like
Yeah,
that's what he was. Like
yeah,
the Emperor was in charge at that time, and he was the one creating like this Death Star and this empire. It wasn't Vader's pet project. He wasn't putting the Death Star together. It was
right.
the Emperor's. But you kind of wonder then you go through all this. How happy was the Emperor when Tarkin blew up Alderaan just to spite a 19-year-old?
Uh, so true.
that that you're like, you did what? Like
Yeah,
you blew up what? Like we needed that planet. That was a planet that had like history. Like we could have used it. We could have held it hostage, but you
yeah,
blew it up because some 19-year-old smarted off at you. Like,
yeah,
so we're gonna end it right there. Little short enough discussion on Andor, but enough. Like we hope that you go in and see it. If you disagree with anything that we've said, or if you agree with anything we said, please let us know on our TikTok, on our Instagram, and here we Will does a great job of posting clips of everything to kind of tie it all back to hopefully making you want to watch this video.
yes,
And thanks to everybody that has organically been tuning in and checking
yes.
out the
Thank you.
videos. We appreciate that, and we will see you next week for the last episode of The Last of Us, and then we've got to kind of decide where we're going to go after this, what we're going to
Yeah.
watch. So until then, bye.